Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics. Sam, there he is. There's my mate. How you doing, buddy?
How are you? All right?
Very, very good. Very good. Really looking forward to today.
Yeah, well, do you know what? We did this last time, didn't we? Where we sat back and sort of watched through everything that had happened. But I think today's going to be even bigger and better because so much has happened. I mean, it only feels like yesterday that we sort of came up with the idea for a podcast. And here we are at the end of season 2, mate.
I know. It's and so much water has gone under the bridge. So much has happened in the outside world. I mean, we've been a nice, gentle little podcast constant, whilst everything else has been churning away in the background. It's been really odd.
But we've been really lucky because along the way, we have been joined by some amazing people.
Very, very true. I mean, and I mean, this season, twice as many guests as our first season. So that means less of us in a way.
Well, I'm sure people will be well chuffed with that. But
probably right.
No, we have been so lucky because we've had not only some wonderful people, but some incredibly versatile people who have been able to bring all sorts of different ideas and stories from different directions in the industry. I mean, we started out back 14 weeks ago or whatever it was with the amazing David Fisher, who musician, street performer as a busker, but also an actor. So all sorts of different things he was able to tell us about.
Yeah, and we moved on then to another actor with the lovely Amy Forrest, who, again, actor, also a performance coach as well. So she had some very interesting things to say about her career in that respect.
Yeah, and then my good friend, Mr. Rob Jones TV, who, when it comes to versatility, he's kind of written the book, hasn't he? Because not only is he also a musician, but an incredible actor. He does a lot of writing and producing music. He's also been a presenter. He's just he's jack of all trades, but masters all of them.
It certainly does. Yeah, that was very well put, mate. I tell you what, and then we got a little bit special, didn't we? Because we doubled up. We had 2 guests. Yeah. We had the lovely Erin Garrity and Paul Lavers, who it goes without saying that they are a powerful couple of actors, directors, television presenters, but also a power couple because they are a married couple. Yeah. And again, that was something special and enlightening. So I really enjoyed their chat. They were fabulous fun.
And then we went from one power couple to half of a power couple because we had your better half, the wonderful Miss Verona Chard, your lovely wife, who again is a hugely versatile performer. I mean, started out as a classical musician, as a singer, but also teaches, coaches. She writes shows. She's an actress as well. So we're just overwhelmed with her talent. God knows why she's with you, mate.
But I know I'm very humbled by her. Very humbled. No, but we finished the season. Well, I'd say we finished the season. We finished our season of guests with. Well, not only is he the son of a very famous father, I mean, a lot of people remember the late and very, very great writer, television writer, Brian Clemens. And we had the honor of being joined by Sam Clemens, one of his sons. Sam is a director primarily now, but also a very, very talented actor. So we finished the season on a real high.
Well, and do you know what? I think it was only right to do so because the level had been so high throughout. I mean, we just
absolutely, yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Something brilliant, something new, and it was just an absolute honour to have them on with us. And as you say, mate, I'm super excited to now sit back and look through some of our favourite highlights and some of the funniest or most touching or most memorable moments. So I'm pretty much ready to get started. Are you?
The prerequisite, mate. We can't go anywhere. We can't start anything without.
We're good to go then.
Let's do it.
Cheers, mate. The thing is, it's a snowball, isn't it? So all of us discover in the industry that we'd all love to go out there and go, well, I'm just going to play classical music and that's absolutely it. Or I'm just going to be a stage performer, or I just want to be in EastEnders. You can have that one goal, but you're going to find it incredibly difficult to fund yourself or create a career just focusing on that one tiny sort of point.
Well, this is why like the people telling me no was the best thing, because like, you know, or just hitting a hurdle like, oh, we need a bass player. Oh, I'll learn that then. I'll do that. You know, oh, I'll learn how to do this. Like you can't act. All right, I bloody will. I'll show you. You know, like, or you can't do this because of this, and we're not going to sign you, or you're never going to make it, or whatever. No, bollocks. I am. And it's that's I feed off that. You know, I don't care if I don't get a casting or anything like that, because it's just like whatever, you know. So it's all been really valuable, and I guess through all of those happenings, that's what's made me pick up so many trades. And you know, in this day and age, I mean, pre-COVID, I guess more, but there are quiet periods. You know, like if you've just been on tour, or you've just had your album out, and that's kind of tapered off. You know, what else is going to bring in the money? And so, you know, I don't think I could survive just being an actor or just doing this or that. You know, so I do feel sorry for and understand, you know, people that do have to default to something else because they have to obviously keep the lights on. So I'm fortunate that it's worked out the way it has for me, even though I've obviously worked for it. That, you know, no matter what day of the week it is, something I'm doing is something I want to do and work to do, and it's in the industries that I love.
You know, it's suddenly that thing of going out there and not having an audience. And there are no guarantees, are there? There are no guarantees.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, Covent Garden is so quite different to the sort of the busking that I do. With Covent Garden, you're more guaranteed of an audience than pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah.
You probably will. And you know, quite frankly, I mean, I don't think I'd make very much at all if I went to Covent Garden, because I don't think my act is sort of unique enough. But yeah, I mean, the first time I went busking, it was in Milton Keynes, because that's where I grew up. I think it was uni holidays. I was back with my parents. And I went for a start, I didn't actually make as much as I'd paid to get into the centre on the bus, so that wasn't a good start, to be honest. But it was this weird sense of, you know, where do I just sort of got my guitar out, and I was, you know, I haven't got permission from anyone. No one's told me to play. Do I just start playing? It was a really, really weird sense. Yeah, I think I made about £3.50 because I'd chosen a terrible spot. It was raining, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm glad I didn't sack it all in at that point, to be honest. But it is a very weird sensation, because it's not like a gig where, yeah, as you say, you know, you've got an audience, you know what's expected of you. It's very odd to just for the
I guess it's almost flipped on its head, because when we go and do shows in the theatre or in venues, the audience are waiting for us to come out and do our thing. As a busker, as a street performer, you're waiting for the audience to come and give you the time of day, sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And with the sort of busking that I do, it tends to be people don't tend to stop and linger for too long. They'll drop a bit in and then walk on by. And that was always one of my arguments. I'm sure we'll go into talking about busking over the last year or so, which has been very different. When every now and then I'd get sort of stopped and questioned by police officers or council officials saying, "Oh, are you allowed to be out here?" And I'd say, "Yeah, yes. Here's the legislation that I think proves that." And then they'd say, "Oh, well, you know, what if you draw a crowd?" And I'd always say, "Well, that's never been a problem for the last 10 years." I don't think you're talking about. So yeah, I mean, that's it doesn't tend to be a big issue for me.
Do you want to talk to us, tell everyone at home, all our viewers and listeners, about probably the two big areas that you're particularly involved in that are so incredibly important to the industry, but perhaps don't get the same exposure as other things?
Yeah, so I'm a disability advocate and an LGBTQ plus advocate as well. I'm openly bisexual, and I've been a member of the LGBTQ plus Committee for Equity for a few years now, and that's been fantastic, because we're able to there's a lot of work that goes in that people don't see behind the scenes, and whenever members have a query or something, or we see something in the industry, we kind of work as a committee to try and help and you know, bring these things to you know, whatever the situation might be. You know, it's all about representation, and it's about trying to make the industry aware of these of situations that might crop up that might not necessarily, if you're not identifying as LGBTQ plus, you might not necessarily realize or something. And so we work very close with various organizations to bring these to the forefront, and there's a lot of work being done right now, which is fantastic.
It's very much an awareness thing, isn't it? Like it's very much an awareness thing. Like, so
yeah,
this isn't something new. It's just that there's so much going on now to make it a lot more mainstream and a lot more obvious to people, and that acceptance and the equality behind it, and just really bringing it to the forefront.
Well, I'm Samuel Clemens, but Sam to everyone. And I am an actor and a director and a writer, and sort of juggle between each one of those jobs. But started out as an actor. I trained at the Drama Centre London, graduated in like 2001, I think, and then worked professionally as an actor ever since. And then started directing my own films around about 2007, I think, which was sort of inspired by when I was an actor at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and they have a load of kit. And while you're there in Stratford, you're allowed to make a short film while you're there, or you pitched to make them. And at the end of the season, they screen them at the local Stratford cinema. And so we all went off and made short films, and that kind of ignited, a sort of a burning desire to make my own films, because I couldn't believe up until that point you could just pick up a camera and go and make something. I mean, obviously those films were a bit strange because they would star people like Toby Stephens or Judi Dench or whoever was not, because they were down there. So your first foray into it was like, this is mental. But it really, that kicked that off for me in about 2005.
Obviously, that is kind of the nature of the business, that you will jump from job to job. You might be in different places. How have you found that, and how have you sort of made that work as a married couple, doing very similar jobs, but with other directions?
We hadn't actually met at the time of Angels. Let me just clarify that. We met some later. But yes, I mean, I think more so now we're ships that don't always pass in the night and frequently don't always pass in the month. But of course, nowadays it is so much easier because you have mobile phones, you have video calling. Sometimes one of us is away on a job and I just want to FaceTime just to see his face. I know you might find that hard to believe.
Course.
But I think it was much harder in years gone by, especially, there were years when there was a period when Paul spent a lot of time being a TV presenter, a very good one at that, and he still dabbles in that field. And I would be at home with the 5 children, including triplets, and unable to go off and do any work because we had 5 children, including triplets, and Paul was away being Mr. Presenter, Mr. Anglia TV, or wherever he was at the time. So, it was difficult because, we both had periods where we haven't been able to go and do what we wanted to do creatively. But if you get together and if you have a family, especially, then, there are compromises. It's inevitable. It doesn't mean that you have to give everything up. But, can you have it all? You can have a little bit of a lot, but you can't actually always, get it all, because that's impossible for anyone, and I think we both feel a little bit more. So I suppose I always joke and say we're smug empty nesters, but the reality is we do not have dependents anymore, either children or our parents. So if one of us is away in the last sort of probably 10, 15 years, we both spent a lot of time working away, a lot of time touring, and quite a lot of that together and quite a lot of that apart. And we will look at a tour list and I will say, well, I'll come to there and I'll come to Buxton because Buxton's nice, and I'll come to Malvern, but I'm not sure if I'm going to unnamed place. So I won't name your viewers. But, that's just the way it is, and we always make sure that we book digs that the other one can come to if possible. You have to put work in, whatever field you're in, you have to put work into a relationship, and sometimes it's been easier than others,
Yeah.
I guess on the subject of things making a difference, we might as well jump in there quite early on. So, as you know, Drew and I refer quite often to our uninvited guest. Yeah. And I imagine that said guest had or has or is having even an incredible effect on what you do as a performer in public. Now we thought we were really clever, Drew and I, and we thought, do you know what? We're going to book in David, because we'll be able to speak to him just as we're changing over, the rules are relaxed and things are, I won't use the word normal, but things are familiar again. And perhaps it'll be the perfect time to say, are you excited that the restrictions are really kind of eased off and you're going to be able to go back to exactly where you were before? Unfortunately, Mr. Boris had other ideas. So we cannot refer to the forthcoming relaxation as in being so soon. It is still happening, obviously, but it's going to be a little bit further down the line. But that aside, can you sort of allude to just how much things have changed and how heavily you've been affected?
Yeah, I mean, it's had a huge impact. I mean, at the start of the pandemic, I had a couple of months off. And then I went back to it sort of mid-May when the shops opened up again, I think. And it was, everything was different. There were pitches that I used to play in that were no longer viable pitches because, I was very concerned that I had to make sure I was staying 2 meters. I was able to set my guitar case 2 meters in front of me. And a lot of people weren't carrying cash, so I now have a contactless option for busking. You can tap to tip, which has had a reasonable amount of success. But everything felt different. I mean, for a month or two, I was mainly busking outside supermarkets. I was busking to the supermarket queues because that's where the people were. So there was all sorts of the different ways of getting used to it. So there's been that, and then of course there's been the legal side, which has caused quite a bit of arguments within the busking community. I mean, I volunteer with an organisation called Keep Streets Live, and we campaign for buskers' rights and a lot on the legal side of things. We've argued throughout that the law says that we have been allowed to busk because the law says, well, you're allowed to leave the house to go to work, and well, if the police officers that arrested me in January over this, they were saying, well, I was saying, well, if this hasn't worked, then can I have my taxes back from the last 10 years that I've been preparing on all of this?
I bet that went down well.
As you can imagine, yes. They were rolling in the aisles at that one. So there's been this debate. We've maintained throughout that it's legal, and we've given out advice for how you can keep your workplace COVID safe. As far as we're concerned, you can be in an open space. It's outdoors. There are very few workplaces which are more COVID safe.
Well, yeah, that's the irony. The fact is that your workspace is considerably safer than the majority of others because you are out in the open.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So, and most of the time, I've had no problems. The Musicians Union didn't help by asking the government, "Is it legal?" You should never. This is never the number one rule. You should never ever ask anyone whether you can play or not. Never ask the councils. Never ask because they don't know the answer and they don't care. And they're never going to say that the answer, regardless of COVID or anything else, is never going to be, ask wherever you like. No one says that, so don't ask. I didn't understand that. But anyway, the government came back saying, no, you shouldn't be busking until this date. And it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any legal sense or anything like that. So, as far as we're concerned, that was some intern firing off some ill-advised guidance or something like that. So we have had that problem throughout as well. And as I say, I was arrested in January when I was asked to leave and said, no, this is my job, and spent 4.5 hours in a police cell in the Black Country over in Oldbury. And they eventually they said they were going to fine me, and eventually they sort of quietly dropped that by forgetting to put it in the post, I think. But yes, so
if you get home from doing this, or if you go out into your into your hallway and there's a letter on the floor, it's just going to be the worst possible timing.
It will be. I mean, it's been over 5 months. I think they've probably let it slide, but you never know. You never know.
How did you deal with it? I mean, and has like everything else you seem to have got positives out of? Has that period of lockdown and the uninvited guests, has that driven you on to other things? Are you turning your hand to other stuff, or it's
it hit obviously every industry of mine.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, obviously touring gone, like acting jobs, all that stuff gone. I mean, there was the only thing I sort of picked up that I did more of was voiceover work, because obviously a lot of people were turning to animations and stuff. So obviously I'm sitting on the studio, so I got to do a lot of that. But the most annoying thing, this brings me on to the Dizzy Rascal stuff.
We were going to ask.
I wrote, obviously you guys know, but I wrote and perform a new song with Dizzy Rascal called Be Incredible. And obviously we've written and recorded it before The Unwanted Guest and all that. And the plan was in 2020 that I'd be on the road with him, performing it with him, things like Glastonbury and all that stuff, which would have obviously been huge. And obviously it came along, and then it was like push back. And then eventually it was like, we've just got to release the album. So the album came out, no touring, no PR. And I'm like, because obviously like it's my name on it as well. So, you know, as much as a privilege that it was to have the opportunity, but obviously it's, the kickback is, you know, who's that guy on stage with him? People look it up and like find my stuff and so on and so forth. So it was a huge kick in the nuts. But, you know, the bigger picture is it was horrific for a lot of people. Loads of people lost family members and whatnot. So I'm not, you know, I'm not even touching that. But so, yeah, but to answer your question, obviously things like that, you know, were a massive thing. But, you know, music's not going anywhere. You know, all of our shows are being rescheduled, and, you know, it's all going to pick back up. But yeah, obviously a lot of revenue, like everyone was lost and stuff. But you know, you don't just sit around twiddling your thumbs. I got on with lots of songwriting and just creative stuff, and you know, even just doing up the studio and just doing whatever I can to keep creative. The only annoying thing was, I guess, was not being able to go places and, you know, be active, you know, while the clock was stopped.
Is there one of the many things that you are good and successful at? Is there one discipline now you think you hold dear, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to push forward with that, or are you still going to be this kind of this polymath that you are?
Well, I mean, it's weird because when you said at the beginning of this that we all now have to sort of do many things, the idea of when I used to say I also direct, people were like, well, what are you? What do you do?
Right.
And I battled it for a long time, but, you know, like, well, I do both without being, you know, trying to not be arrogant about it or like, you know, sound like an idiot. But I did feel I can do these. I can do it together. Like I can act, I can direct, I can write, I can do those things. And now I think that that's a completely acceptable way of working entirely. I think that, you know, the younger generation, because they're basically filmmakers of their own lives, because they're filming their entire life, and they're also learning about how to shoot something, to light something, how to sell it. They don't even know that that's what they're doing, that they are completely one person band, you know, making their own life. So I don't think it has the stigma, and so I suppose I've really accepted directing generally as a profession into my life, and I really, really enjoy it, and I really have embraced it. And I was lucky I also got to direct at drama schools during this. I was working at the Giles Foreman Centre for Acting in Soho when it was dead, when there was no one there. It was like 28 days later and us doing The Cherry Orchard, you know, and that experience will never ever probably happen again. But I suppose I love doing audio and I love doing theatre, and I just think I love being in the room.
It also stopped us dead in our tracks. How did you cope with lockdown? But what were you doing when it suddenly locked us all out, and how did you cope with it?
Okay, so I was in my 4th week of rehearsals for Manor at the National, and yeah, which has now been re-announced because it will be back on.
Yay, good stuff.
Yay. But anyway, yeah, 4th week of rehearsals, and we found out apparently they were going to lock down London, but one of the cast members said, and I was like, yeah, but we'll still be rehearsing, right? no. And we performed. We had to, we performed the play one last time to, to do the to just run it, and literally it was incredible. Everyone was just amazing, and I was like, it was like the last time we were going to perform. It was a really weird feeling, and everyone just brought their A game, and it was just brilliant. And
a bit like a temporary farewell, almost like you might be stopping us doing something we love, but look what we can do, and look what we'll be back to do later. Like, unwelcome guest, you're not going to stop us forever. Right? Stick your fingers up to it and go, no, look, we are still viable. We are still incredible. This is what we do, and we'll be back. Mate, some incredible stories there. It's amazing how the unwelcome guest affected so many different areas of the industry. But more importantly, how our brilliant guests dealt with it.
You're not wrong. We should raise a glass to them all. And I would, but unfortunately, I'm running on empty.
Well, bloody hurry up and sort it then, mate. There's lots more to come. And we haven't even heard from your lovely wife yet.
Yeah, problem is, I know what's coming.
Stop moaning and go get a topper.
Right, I'm back.
Okay, how's your glass?
It's more than half full, mate.
Well, that's appropriate, as it certainly was for our guests.
Yeah, very witty. Now, shut up, mate. It's time for more great stuff from our Season 2 visitors.
So to mitigate the fact that fear, dread and panic were a sort of regular feature for me, or us even maybe. We would be found in a pub every night as well, often into the early hours, imbibing, telling stories, trying to not to think about the fact that we didn't know the lines for the next day, whatever it was. And on one such occasion, we both got very drunk, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. This is I think I know where this is going.
And we staggered.
Do you want to stay, mate, or do you think you need to make a swift exit?
No, I think I'll just stay here and take it on the chin.
To cut a long story short, we staggered up the road in Sidmouth to our digs. We found them. I don't know how, but we did. We went to bed. It was, I don't remember going to bed. I don't know if Drew does.
No.
But I was awoken again, further into the early hours of the morning, by this sound of somebody moving around. And I thought, oh, what is it? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I could hear Drew going, grunting and what have you. And then I looked over in this sort of dawn light, barely could see him. And he was in the corner. And I said, Drewy, what are you doing? And he said, I need the loo. I said, well, you can't go there because that is the closet, but not that kind of closet. It's the closet that has a curtain across it where you put your clothes in the room. So then you staggered elsewhere, didn't you?
I sort of staggered off in the general direction of a bathroom somewhere.
Yes, and I don't think you came back, did you?
I fell asleep on the bathroom floor, rolled up. And it is worth bearing in mind that these digs, we were sharing bathroom with the two aged and very sweet landlord and landlady. So I fell asleep on the bathroom floor, curled up, naked, and curled up
lovely. As you
in towels and bathroom mats. I think Verona found me hours later.
Yes. Yeah, luckily I don't think the landlady found you, did she?
They did. No, she didn't know. Bless her heart. No, it's never come. Yeah.
So we didn't have many drunken stories, but that is one of them.
That's one.
And dare I ask?
Yeah.
At what point in this, in the procedure that you were attempting to complete, Drew, were you interrupted? Had you begun? Or
No.
Luckily.
Only just, but yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, you saved the day, Verona, without realising.
Without realising, because I realised absolutely nothing at that point.
So I spent about 3.5 years travelling around Europe, busking my way around. So that included, in the end, every country in the EU and a few more besides. Probably I do keep track of every city of Bastion. I think that it's now up at about 320 in total.
That's
So I had an absolutely brilliant time doing it, and I'll go back to it, I'm sure, once travel isn't an absolute pain in the
one of those, yeah.
Pain in the busk, yeah. I mean, just tell us very briefly. There's this amazing, incredible story of the three girls. Because, wow.
Well, very briefly, Paul came as a package deal. You know, few months after we met in February '79, and later that summer he was given care and control and custody of his two small sons from his previous marriage. So they came to live with us when we then moved in together, because we hadn't quite done that. So they came, and we thought we'd get the younger boy to school, and then we'd have a baby. So that was the plan, and both boys went, you know, Michael went to school, and then James went to school, and then we started trying for a baby. And I got pregnant, which was wonderful, and then I had a threatened miscarriage. So they arranged for me to have a scan to see if I'd lost the baby, at which point we discovered that, in fact, we had 3 babies. And that was all a bit of a shock, because we had a Mini, and you can't get 5 children in the back of a Mini safely. And, you know, that's 6 dozen terry toweling nappies and 24 feeds a day, which is where my head immediately went, because I'm an organised person. That's how do we do this? And unfortunately, or fortunately, you know, as it turns out, we were lucky. They were born 12 weeks prematurely. They were nearly born before that, but the wonderful NHS and King's College Hospital managed to prolong that, which wasn't a very enjoyable time, but prolong it to get us to 28 weeks. And at that point, they hadn't saved 28-week gestation triplets in the country. So we knew the odds were not good. They were all obviously intubated, put on life support. And unfortunately, that night, I went into heart failure, and they had to put me on a life support as well. So Paul had 3 babies and me all on life support, none of us with any expectation. Paul was told there was no hope for me at all. And over the next sort of week, he was told quite a few times, and I've met the medical professionals since, who said, you know, one woman I remember said, she said, I went home that night, opened a bottle of wine, and I sat there and I thought, that young mother's going to die. You know, and I heard this story from so many different people, because there was no hope for me at all, or for the babies. And that then began about 18 months, really, or 2 years of an enormously stressful and incredibly life-affirming, I suppose, in the end, situation, because the girls had numerous issues with breathing, with bleeds on the brain, with bits of bowel, getting infections, with collapsed lungs, with heart failure, with is she blind, can she move her limbs? And so we had numerous phone calls over that time saying, get here quickly, we live 30 miles away, get here quickly, such and such has gone in heart failure, or she's got a collapsed lung. And we would drive up the A2 frantically, trying to get there before whoever it was, you know, died. And they are now all 3 38. They are all mummies. They are all graduates. They are all extremely bright, noisy, feisty, funny, messy, hilariously wonderful women. And, you know, they're all very natural mothers. They're all very creative. And both those 3 and their 2 brothers are very close. And, you know, we have this amazingly, ridiculously noisy tribe, of whom we're extremely proud and extremely exhausted still most of the time.
It's funny, today on social media again, one of them is going to a cottage in the country with her brood, and they're all singing Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat on the way down. And so all the girls are sending in bits and pieces of them doing something.
Because we always had that on in our car a lot.
That was what they were brought up with. We had Joseph all the time.
So Fanula's singing it in the car with her children, and then Michael put a bit on, and Kira's going, no, you got that line wrong. It's not that line at all. This is the words. And they're going, oh, you know, and so this wonderful WhatsApp conversation of them all over Joseph.
Fabulous.
And we now have 9 grandchildren.
Jeez.
Which is quite a brood.
I've heard that story before, and it always makes me go, wow, you know. I mean, you can't follow that. That's amazing. I mean,
good night, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Oh, sorry.
My last show before the National Theatre was with Fabulous Laugh Lines and doing the Fawlty Towers parody, and we basically performed at the British Naturist Society.
Oh my God.
which was absolutely incredible. And I felt so weird because I had clothes on. I wasn't naked as Sybil. Sybil wouldn't do that. I don't think. I think she'd wear a bikini. I don't think she'd be completely naked. I don't. Maybe she's had a few more gins. But yeah, and I remember Michael, who's playing Basil, he said, "Oh, Amy, I think maybe you should go out first tonight." And I went, "But Sybil never goes out first. It's always Basil, because he goes out first and introduces himself to the audience." And I knew it's because everybody was naked, and he and the weird thing was I didn't know how I was going to react, because I've never been in that environment before. And I'm sure a lot of people who join British Naturists felt the same way first. You feel a bit nervous or something. And I went out there. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, everybody is naked. And this is so normal for them, because it is normal, you know, it is a normal thing, but it's like, I've never done this. And I went out and I had to imagine everybody in costume, like in a leotard or something, like a leotard, because I had to adjust to my environment of people being naked. Like, and anyway, went out there and I went, "Hello, everyone. Lovely to meet you all. Lovely to see you," you know, doing my thing. And it was so great. It was great. And then Michael came out and then he did his thing. And then, and it was just like, it was so fun. And then at the end, so like, it was just insane. I'm like, who else would Judi Dench be doing this right now? Like doing a dinner show in a, you know, in a hotel full of naked people. I mean, I can't think of anyone. And then go on to see Olivier as your next job. Like, it's insane. And then we, you know, we did the ending, we did the conga and all this kind of thing. And then when we finished the conga naked, everyone was there, you know. And then we all broke off and everyone's on the dance floor and all I could see was bodies around me. And it was just like such a liberating thing. And I was like, and then afterwards we're chatting to everyone and I was in my clothes. But everyone was sat, and it was just, what lovely people. Like, they had the best time. Like, I was just like, this is so awesome.
Unbelievable.
But as you say, I mean, you are literally, you know, performing to passers-by, passing you by. And it's, as I say, is it a kind of geographical thing? But I mean, it's obviously where you put yourself. If people feel comfortable to stand, if you're in a street square, in a town square, then people will stop. But if not, they'll keep going.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, and that's what again can be quite frustrating if you're asked to move to just sort of 20 yards down the road or something like that by someone. And I'll always dig in and say, no, look, I've chosen this spot very, very specifically. This wasn't just a random choice. You know, if I go to a new town, I'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes just sitting on a bench and watching where people are going, where they're coming from, where they're lingering, to try and work out exactly, not just exactly where to stand, but which angle to face. And these things can have a huge impact. I mean, there's one of my favourite busking spots in Birmingham. There was one day when there was that spot was out of commission due to roadworks or something like that. So I set up. It was just 20 meters down the road, and I made less than half what I'd normally make in that other spot. And it was just because of there's a slightly more background noise. The way that people were passing by was very slightly different. And so these things make a huge difference. And I don't. A lot of the time I'll get it wrong. I'll start up in a new spot and think after 20 minutes, well, this is clearly not working, and I'll have to find a new space. But these little details make a massive difference.
I mean, interesting is probably not the word. Stupid is probably more suitable. So the one that springs to mind, and it only springs to mind because it's one of those things that always pops back up on the memories on Facebook. And it was basically we were playing at a festival called Brownstock, and it was after the show, and it was probably about midnight. Everyone's absolutely off their nut, and I was stood on top of our tour van with everyone around me watching, convinced that I would be able to do a front flip off the top and land on my feet, and ta-da! And obviously, I'm standing there thinking, all I got to just see it on YouTube all the time. Well, anyway. So I tried to do it, but I only went like halfway, and I just went on my back, completely like that. But I'm not really selling it, but you just need to. It's out there somewhere on YouTube.
Oh, so this isn't just a story. Right. This is a hint at something that can be found out there in the ether somewhere.
Like, if you wanted something funny and amusing, and but there's the line that I say just before I jump is, if anything, I'll go too far. I literally just went like
kind of halfway round.
But like, obviously, I'm totally out of it, so I just sort of went, I got up or whatever. But the next couple of days, I was a corpse. Literally, like it was like one of them high top tour vans, like at least like 2 of me high.
Yeah.
Imagine just someone like trying to kill themselves off the top.
There's something about alcohol that makes you think you can do things that you probably can't.
Falling off the stage in my audition for the Royal Academy of Music. I stepped forward, I couldn't hear what they were saying, and as I stepped forward I realised there was no more stage left, and I kind of threw myself into the air and I shrieked. I won't do it here, I'll damage your ears. I shrieked at the top of my voice. I was in really high heels, about 4 or 5 inch high heels as well, red high heels, and I managed somehow to land and just go
Stone it out. I like it.
Does her own stunts.
I do my own stunts. That's it. I mean, there are lots of stories about. I don't know if I can tell you things like I worked at the Medieval Banquet for a long time as a singer, as I said, during the course that I did at the Academy, and I've got 2 stories from there. One is there was a party of, I don't know if I can say the nationality, can I?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Group of Russians, and I looked over. I was autistic director at the time. I looked over and one Russian had a knife to the throat of another Russian. Wow. That's a memory I have. And I remember going in, I'm 5'2" without heels. And I went in and told them that they shouldn't be doing this. And I survived, which is extraordinary, really.
It was amazing watching Anne Boleyn take the knives off 2 fighting Russians. It was hysterical.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I think when I did it, well, talking of Dad, I did a play at Nottingham Theatre Royal as part of the Thriller season, and it was one of his plays called Inside Job, and it was a 3-hander. And as it's a rep piece, you start with 10 people in one play, and then 7, then 5, then 3, but you're in all of them, and the parts get bigger. So, and you've got a week to learn each one, and by the end of it, you've only got 4.5 days really to learn it. And this was the last one, and it was Dad's play. It was me, Joe Castleton, and Jeremy Lloyd Thomas. And on the opening night, we started, and I was like, okay, it's going well. But we were like, we've just managed to. It's just gone in. And bless her, Joey in the Act 1 suddenly skipped into Act 2, and I was like, no, we haven't got there yet. And she didn't know for a good few minutes, and then was like, what are you doing? And then realised. And then we had to improvise for about 10 minutes, which feels like eternity. We came back and was like, thank God, came out of it. Second half, I was like, okay, we'll hold it together. The second time, when I have to tie the character up and I have to turn the gas on, and because I was the bad guy, and I had to say a line, what you need most is gas, and turn the gas on, you get this sound effect. That sound effect didn't come out. I think whoever was on the desk hit every single cue. So it went ding dong, all the music, everything happened, and I have to continue. I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. And I just was like that. And my dad was in the audience, and I was like, Dad, I'm so sorry. I messed it up. So I didn't even notice. I was like, you wrote it. Like,
incredible.
One thing I say to actors or anyone in the creative field is don't forget to have a life, whatever that is. You need more than this. Be it a family, if that's the way you want to go. Don't keep putting it off. You'll manage. Be it, traveling or writing or something. Don't just be blinkered and concentrate and only think about this. You'll be a better performer and you'll be a much more grounded person, and it's much better for your mental health and everyone else's. So don't forget to have a life.
And basically, I'd say absolutely to that. But also then Polonius in Hamlet, using the words that Socrates had used beforehand, They're saying, above all, to thine own self be true. Thou canst not then be false to any man. In other words, be true to yourself. And so when you say something, make sure you mean it. I think that's TV presenters as well as actors. Have you meant what you just said? And did you say it in the way that you'd say it to your best friend, your mate? And if the answer is yes, then great. But try and keep that honesty about what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Story.
It's sort of, and it kind of led to one of my favorite periods of that traveling. That time I had traveling. It was when I was over in Armenia, which is a wonderful country, and I was just I was busking on the main streets of the capital city, Yerevan, and I was playing the song "What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor" at the time. And so someone asked if it was okay to film it. I said, yeah, of course. And they came and spoke to me afterwards and said, look, my a good friend of mine is in a Celtic folk band, and their guitarist and singer has just quit. So do you mind if I send this to him? I thought, well, that wasn't quite what I was expecting from busking in Armenia. But he sent this video over, and this guy sent a message back saying, right, tell him to stay where he is. I'm on my lunch break in an hour. I'll come and find him. And so I met this guy a couple of hours later, and he said, well, yeah, how long are you over here for? And I said, about a week or something. Okay, well, I'll get the rest of the band together. We'll have a rehearsal at my place tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. And so I went over for this rehearsal, and we said, okay, we got a set list. You know, a lot of this Irish, it's all Irish and Scottish folk. It's all the stuff that I play. I mean, all the people in the band, they're all Armenian, but they just have a love of Celtic folk music. And so we just they said, right, okay, we'll organise a gig for next week. We'll just Tuesday night, your last night in Armenia, we'll get a gig together, put out something on Facebook. I thought, brilliant, yeah, we might get a couple of dozen people there. And I didn't realise that this band they're incredibly popular. We just sort of we gave people 3 days notice for a Tuesday evening gig. And it came to the gig, and it was completely sold out. 150 people crammed into this tiny little underground bar. What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor was the song that they always used to finish on to get everyone, to get everyone going. And everyone knew all the words. It was. I mean, a fair few people in the audience didn't speak any English, but they knew all the words to "Tell Me Ma" and "Wild Rover" and "What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor." It was bizarre, but absolutely, it was the best gig I've ever played. Absolutely brilliant. And I got quite drunk, and afterwards just sort of went round chatting to everyone and saying, this is great, I love Armenia, I want to move here and just play gigs. And then the next morning I was like, well, so I don't really live anywhere else. I said, sure, why not? And so a few months after that, I was in the UK, and then I moved to Armenia for 3 or 4 months to join the band with the intention of playing gigs. And we played a few gigs. We didn't play as many as we thought, because 3 weeks after I moved there, they had a revolution, which was all very exciting. But one of the people in the band was quite involved in the revolution, so he was quite busy. That led to some of the best street parties I've ever seen. It was a very popular revolution, and went to a bar afterwards that I played a gig at the previous week, and it was just free alcohol all night. I went in at midnight, and the guy who owned the bar was standing on the bar. Said, David, come on in tonight. Every drink free because the revolution is. All right, great. I'll have a beer. No, we drank all the beer. Okay, fine. Well, whatever you have. And it was So that was so that sort of one moment of playing "What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor" on the Yerevan band led to these fantastic gigs and witnessing a revolution. So that was a brilliant time.
That's stunning.
Loved it.
Brilliant, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely surreal. But a story.
Completely.
What a story.
I mean, exactly right. As you said at the end of that clip there, what a story. What a story. But what a season, mate. Yeah. I mean, so fantastic guest. So, I mean, we have to say thank you to David and Amy and Rob, Aaron and Paul, Verona and Sam. Tremendous stuff. I mean, great stories, great survival stories of the unwelcome guest. I mean, they were stunning, weren't they? Absolutely stunning.
It's just been an incredible 2 or 3 months of chatting to hugely talented and hugely resilient people who have just fought to keep going despite everything that's been going on, and allowed us into their world and given us some sort of behind the scenes and stories of exactly what they've done to keep going and how they plan to continue onwards. So, but also, mate, we have to say a big thanks to everyone at home or listening out on the road or wherever they happen.
Oh, right, you are. Yeah.
Watchers and listeners, thank you all so very much. It's still very much for me, and I'm sure Drew, you'll agree, it's a pinch yourself moment that each week we get to do what essentially is two grumpy gits having a bit of a natter and a beer, and people want to tune in and hear what we've got to say and see what we've been up to. So we're truly humbled and indebted to everyone that keeps us going. But please do keep going, because we've got so much exciting stuff coming up in the new season, lots more guests from all sorts of areas, and a few other surprises along the way. And anyone that's joining for the first time, this is just a small taste of what Drew and I get up to, and you can expect so much more. But that said, this is just the highlights of the times where we've been joined by very talented and very special people. We've still got one more episode next week, mate.
I know. It's you and me. Eh?
It is.
Eh?
So
there have been some great moments with between ourselves. So let's see if people agree with us. It'd be interesting if people sort of have their own favourite moments. But yeah, I'm gonna enjoy that one. That's gonna be good fun.
Really looking forward to it. So make sure Drewling Samantics fans of long time, or those of you who are new, please do come and join us again next week. We got one more episode with a load of highlights of what we did in the past season, and then we're back with a brand new one for you. So we look forward to seeing you all next week, and then after that for season 3.
Absolutely.
So anyway, mate, I suppose there's one thing left, isn't there? Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
We'll see you all soon. Thanks.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this special highlights episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then make sure you go and watch all our previous episodes in full for even more fun and interesting content. Please consider subscribing to our channel too, and you'll get notified every time a new video is released.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And we'd love your support on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends, and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.